Number 7. Ishna Marie Lopez. On January the 7th of 2018, Janice Zengotita Torres was abducted after leaving a Ross Dress for Less at a shopping center near Kissimmee, Florida. She was reportedly restrained with zip ties and had her head covered with duct tape and garbage bags. After struggling to escape, Zengotita Torres was beaten unconscious before she ultimately suffocated to death. The suspects, Alexis Ramos Rivera and his girlfriend, Gloria Ann Marie Quinones Montes, then dumped the victim's body in Ormond Beach, where it was found by cable workers the following day. On January the 12th, local police arrested 35-year-old Ishna Marie Lopez, who'd been caught using Zengotita Torres' bank card. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that Lopez had orchestrated a murder-for-hire plot that led to the woman's death. However, it emerged that Zengotita Torres hadn't been Lopez's intended target. She'd actually sought to eliminate her love rival, but Ramos Rivera and Quinones Montes, whom she'd hired to perform the job, had mistakenly gone after Zengotita Torres. Court documents indicated that the 3 suspects were each charged with premeditated murder. The Associated Press reported that they'd moved to Florida from Puerto Rico only a month prior to their arrests. Ramos Rivera was convicted of murder and consequently given 2 life sentences, while Quinones Montes agreed to a plea deal that sentenced her to 22 years in prison. As of the recent updates on the case, Lopez's latest scheduled court appearance was set for May of 2022. Number 6. Shirley Malone. On April the 20th of 2013, a man fishing in Hog Eye Creek in Arkansas's rural Washington County came upon a suspicious object that he believed to be some kind of explosive device. The Bentonville Bomb Squad was called in to inspect the find and safely remove it from the public area. The item was sent to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives in Fort Smith, who determined that it was in fact a working pipe bomb that had been wired to be detonated remotely by a cell phone. As the investigation progressed, it emerged that the phone which had been programmed into the bomb had been purchased at a Fayetteville Walmart. Detectives used the store's surveillance video to identify West Fork resident Shirley Malone as the individual who'd made the purchase. The 40-year-old woman was then questioned by the police, at which point she admitted to have created the pipe bomb using information she'd gathered from a YouTube video. As later stated by the Washington County Sheriff in a press conference, Malone and her boyfriend Andrew Cox had planned to place the bomb underneath a car belonging to the woman's ex-husband. They'd intended to trigger a massive explosion that would lead to his death. Cox reportedly had second thoughts about the murder plot and tossed the explosive device into the creek, where it was eventually found by the fishermen. Malone was arrested on charges of conspiracy, criminal use of a prohibited weapon, and criminal possession of explosives. After agreeing to a plea deal, she was sentenced to 18 years behind bars. Number 5. Beau Cormier. A pair of Louisiana women were gunned down at a home in Montagut on January the 13th of 2021. Brittany Cormier and her neighbor, Hope Nettleton, had reportedly been at the former's house when a man arrived and asked for another woman by name. In an effort to protect the unidentified female whom the stranger was seeking, Brittany told him that she was her. At that point, he fatally shot both her and Nettleton. It subsequently emerged that the gunman, 22-year-old Dalvin Wilson, had been hired by Beau Cormier, the slain woman's brother. He'd allegedly meant to kill a woman who'd accused him of assault and was set to testify against him in court. His accuser wasn't at the house that night, however, and the murder plot Cormier had orchestrated inadvertently led to his own sister's death, as well as that of her uninvolved neighbor. Cormier and Wilson were both arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, as was 25-year-old Andrew Eskine, who'd allegedly acted as a liaison in the murder conspiracy. All 3 suspects were reportedly held in the Terrebonne Parish Jail on a $2 million bond and were scheduled to stand trial for the double homicide in early 2022. Number 4. Wendy Moore and Chris Latham. In 2013, law enforcement in Charleston, South Carolina, pulled over a vehicle driven by Aaron Wilkinson on the city's east side. Although subsequent reports didn't elaborate on the initial reasons for the traffic stop, it would eventually emerge that the decision to pull Wilkinson over had had the fortuitous effect of foiling a prospective murder plot. Further investigation into the matter uncovered that the man had previously been hired to carry out the killing of Nancy Cannon. The local woman was at the time in the midst of a contentious divorce with her estranged husband, Chris Latham. Court records indicated that the latter had conspired with his mistress, 38-year-old Wendy Moore, to eliminate Cannon by putting a hit out on her. Moore allegedly set the plan into motion by contacting her ex-husband, Sam Yenawine, who consequently contracted Wilkinson to serve as the assassin. Once the elements of Moore and Latham's murder-for-hire plot had been brought to light, the authorities sought criminal charges against each of the parties involved. It was Moore who faced the brunt of the legal consequences, which largely stemmed from the fact that investigators had discovered that she'd provided Yenawine with a hit packet that included maps and personal information about the target and her family. She was ultimately found guilty on 4 federal counts, while Latham was convicted of only 1 count of using interstate facilities in the commission of murder for hire. It was reported that Yenawine had taken his own life prior to being tried for his involvement in the elaborate conspiracy. Number 3. Heidi Marie Littlefield. After Carmel resident Francis Kelly hadn't been heard from for a couple of days, Indiana police were asked to conduct a welfare check on him. On January the 18th of 2021, officers found the 46-year-old dead on his couch, and 2 days later, an autopsy determined that he passed away from asphyxia due to manual strangulation. His death was officially classified as a homicide. Kelly also reportedly suffered blunt force trauma to various parts of his body, including his head, and the medical examiner noted the presence of fentanyl in his system. Investigators examined the victim's cell phone, which led to the discovery of potentially inculpatory text messages exchanged with his ex-girlfriend, Heidi Marie Littlefield. Kelly had alleged that she'd tampered with his oatmeal only days prior to his death. At the time, they'd reportedly been embroiled in a heated custody battle for their 2-year-old daughter. The pair had also been scheduled to appear in court following allegations that 41-year-old Littlefield had been violating an order that allowed Kelly to bring the child to his house during his allotted parenting time. Carmel police got in touch with Littlefield's ex-husband, who reportedly told him that a few months earlier, the woman had paid her adult daughter's boyfriend $2,500 to hire a hitman to kill Kelly. The man reportedly ended up using the money for drugs, so Littlefield decided to take matters into her own hands. She allegedly snuck into the victim's home and laced his oatmeal with fentanyl, but the dose proved to be non-lethal. In a last resort effort to get rid of her ex-boyfriend, Littlefield physically attacked Kelly in his home, fatally strangling him with what was said to have been his favorite tie. The police later learned that Littlefield had attempted to murder Kelly on at least 2 other occasions in the past year, including an instance in which she'd laced his suit with fentanyl. Littlefield was charged with murder as well as conspiracy to commit murder and scheduled to stand trial in August of 2022. Today's topic was requested by Queen Sylvanas and Alex B. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Doris Rene Jenkins and Adan Taylor. Arkansas woman Doris Rene Jenkins was arrested on June the 2nd of 2018 after it emerged that she'd been trying to orchestrate the murder of Circuit Judge Brad Caron. 36-year-old Jenkins' arrest affidavit indicated that her fiancé, named as Adan Taylor, was also taken into police custody for being an accessory to the alleged murder-for-hire plot. 2 days prior to her arrest, Jenkins had been in the county jail on an unrelated charge when she reportedly spoke with a fellow inmate about her plan to take out Judge Caron. Jenkins allegedly sought retribution against the judge for what she'd perceived as the unfair arrests of her family members throughout over 2 decades. On June the 2nd, after their release from jail, Jenkins met up with the inmate, whose identity was kept out of public records, to discuss the specifics of the murder plot. The inmate brought along an unidentified third party and claimed they'd be willing to carry out the hit. According to the resulting affidavit, Jenkins offered the hitman various electronic equipment, including a soundbar and an original photographic print of Marilyn Monroe, as payment for the job. Unbeknownst to Jenkins, however, she detailed her murderous scheme to an undercover police officer who'd been posing as the prospective assassin. It subsequently emerged that the inmate to whom Jenkins had spoken about her plan had immediately gone to the police to report her. The pair's meeting with the hitman had actually been a sting operation organized by local investigators who recorded the conversation that ultimately led to Jenkins' arrest In December of 2019, the woman was sentenced to 40 years in prison after pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit capital murder. Number 1. Elsie Rodriguez Garcia. 25-year-old Elsie Rodriguez Garcia, an employee at a pediatrician's office on Long Island, New York, separated from her husband in January of 2019. The following summer, Rodriguez Garcia began devising a plan to win the unidentified man back. He'd reportedly been spending time in Ecuador, accompanied by his mother and his 5-year-old daughter from a previous relationship, in a twisted effort to manipulate her ex-husband into returning to the United States. Rodriguez Garcia allegedly contacted an Ecuadorian hitman about killing the man's family. The plan was ultimately thwarted by Rodriguez Garcia's ex-husband himself, who learned of the murder-for-hire plot and immediately notified New York police. Investigators sent Rodriguez Garcia a fake picture in which they'd staged the two targets' deaths. Then, with the apparent confirmation the murders had been committed as planned, the woman agreed to pay $6,000 to the individual she believed to be the hitman. By doing so, Rodriguez Garcia inadvertently ensured her downfall, as she'd given the authorities everything they needed to arrest her. On July the 13th, he was taken into custody on charges of attempted murder and conspiracy. In March of 2021, it was reported that Rodriguez Garcia had agreed to a plea deal with prosecutors that sentenced her to 2 to 6 years in prison. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have a hit put on you or immediately have a heart attack if you move too quickly? Let us know in the comments section below.